In the quiet corners of national archives, tucked between cracked leather bindings and brittle envelopes postmarked with cities that no longer exist, lie letters written in the final days of peace by shopkeepers in Sarajevo, schoolgirls in Verdun, Jewish tailors in Warsaw, and farmers in Flanders. They were not soldiers. They did not carry rifles or wear medals. They were civilians, mothers, fathers, children, lovers, who sensed the storm gathering on the horizon and reached for paper and ink, not to chronicle history, but to hold on to their humanity before it was swept away. These letters were not meant for posterity. They were written in haste, sealed with trembling hands, and often never mailed. Yet they survived in attics in buried tins in the lining of coats, bearing witness to a universal truth, that war does not begin with the first shell but with the last letter home. The story begins not on a battlefield but in a sunlit kitchen in Lille, France, on July 28, 1914. Elise Moreau, a schoolteacher with ink-stained fingers and a love for Victor Hugo, sat at her wooden table, pen in hand, writing to her brother Pierre, a student in Paris. Outside, children played in the cobbled street. The scent of baking bread drifted through the open window. The newspapers speak of Austria and Serbia, she wrote, but here life is sweet. The cherries are ripe. I saved you a jar of jam. She signed it, your Elise, and tucked in a pressed violet from her garden. She mailed it the next morning. That afternoon, Germany declared war on Russia. By August 3rd, German troops crossed into Belgium. By August 15th, Lille was under siege. Elise never wrote again. Her letter reached Pierre on August 20th, stamped with a censor's mark, delayed by chaos. He kept it for 60 years. When he died in 1974, his daughter found it in a shoebox, still fragrant with lavender. Elise had vanished in the fall of 1914. Some said she fled south, others that she was shot for hiding refugees. No grave bears her name, but her violet, now brown and brittle, remains pressed between the pages of a diary that asks, over and over, what happened to her? Her story was repeated thousands of times across Europe in the summer of 1914, a season of innocence abruptly severed. In Sarajevo, after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, Milena Kovac, a seamstress, wrote to her fiancé Nikola, who was away on military training. They say war is coming, but we have the Harvest Festival next week. I made your favourite strudel. Come home soon. The world feels thin like old paper. Nikola never returned. His unit was among the first sent to the Serbian front. Milena's apartment was shelled in 1915. Her letter was found years later in the rubble, half burned, the ink blurred by rain, yet her plea, come home soon, still legible in the charred corner. These were not grand declarations. They were quiet cries of ordinary life, recipes shared, worries confessed, small joys recorded, written by people who did not yet know they were living in the before. In rural Flanders, 12-year-old Jan de Smet wrote to his cousin in Ghent, Papa says the soldiers are coming, but our cow, Bessie, had twins. I named them Peace and Plenty. A week later, the Battle of Yerbs began. Jan's village was obliterated by artillery. His letter, found in a rusted biscuit tin decades later, is one of the few records that the hamlet of Oosthoek ever existed. The tragedy of these letters is not just their loss, but their near erasure. History remembers generals and treaties, but rarely the woman who wrote, I fear the trains will stop. If this letter arrives, know I love you, or the boy who asked, will there still be school when the soldiers leave? Their voices were buried under rubble, drowned in trenches, silenced by displacement. And yet some survived, not through design, but through chance. A letter used as lining in a suitcase, a diary hidden in a chimney, a postcard kept in a soldier's pocket as a talisman. During World War II, the scale of civilian erasure grew catastrophic. In Warsaw in the spring of 1939, David Lewin, a tailor and father of two, wrote to his sister in London, the talk of war is louder now, but we are Polish. We have seen empires rise and fall. We will endure. He enclosed a sketch of his children, Leah, age 8, and Samuel, age 5, playing in the courtyard of their apartment building on Orlica Prosna. Leah wants to be a doctor. Samuel still believes in fairies. By October 1939, Warsaw was under Nazi occupation. By 1940, the Lewins were forced into the ghetto. David's last known letter, smuggled out in 1941, read, We have no bread. But Leah shares her ration with a neighbour's baby. She says, the baby is smaller. God bless her small heart. The family perished in Treblinka in 1942. The sketch of the children was found sewn into the lining of a coat recovered from the camp. It now hangs in the Polin Museum, labelled simply "Unknown Children." In London, during the Blitz, 10-year-old Margaret Ellis wrote nightly to her evacuated brother in Wales, "Mum says not to worry, but the bombs sound like giants stomping. Last night our window shattered. I saved your marbles, they're in the teapot." Her house was hit on May 10, 1941. Margaret and her mother died instantly. The teapot, miraculously intact, was dug from the rubble by a rescue worker who mailed its contents to the brother. He kept the marbles in his pocket for the rest of his life. These letters reveal a haunting pattern. The closer the war, the more mundane the words. As if in the face of annihilation, people clung to the ordinary as an act of defiance. Not "I am terrified," but the roses bloomed early. Not "I may die, but send my coat if you find it." In Stalingrad, a woman named Anya Petrova wrote on the back of a ration card, "The cat is still with us. She sleeps on my feet. I think she knows." The card was found in the ruins of her apartment, frozen in ice, her body nearby curled around a small, starved feline skeleton. Governments, of course, tried to control these voices. Censorship offices in every warring nation scanned letters for sensitive information. Phrases like "we are starving" or "the front is collapsing" were cut out or confiscated, but civilians found ways around it. In occupied France, mothers used code "Aunt Madeline is unwell," meant food was scarce. "The garden needs tending" meant a resistance drop was expected. In Germany, in 1944, a teenager named Klaus wrote to his friend, "The piano at school is out of tune. The high notes are gone." He meant the Allied bombing had destroyed the East Wing. His letter passed censors because who would suspect music of carrying truth? Yet for every letter that slipped through, thousands were lost, mail trains derailed, post offices burned, entire postal systems collapsed under the weight of displacement. In 1945, as the Third Reich fell, the Berlin Hauptpostamt was abandoned, a mountain of undelivered letters, millions of them, left to rot in the rain. Most disintegrated, a few were salvaged by historians, their ink running into ghosts of words, "We are safe," "Love you always," waiting. But some families preserved their letters with fierce devotion. In Vienna, after the Anschluss, the Weiss family buried a tin box in their backyard containing letters, photos, and a lock of their daughter's hair. They fled to Argentina. The box was unearthed in 1998 during construction. Inside, a 1938 letter from 14-year-old Elsa read, "I don't understand why they hate us. I got first prize in math. Is that bad now?" Her fate is unknown, but her words are not. Archivists call these last letters, not because they were intended as farewells, but because they became the final trace of a person. They are fragile not just in paper, but in memory. Without them, entire lives vanish into the statistical void of civilian casualties. With them, we see the individual, the father who saved jam, the girl who believed in fairies, the boy who named calves peace and plenty. The emotional core of these letters is their unfinishedness. They were written with the assumption of a tomorrow that never came. A question hangs in every line. Will you read this? Will you remember me? In Hiroshima, on August 5, 1945, a young woman named Keiko Tanaka wrote to her fiancé, a soldier stationed in Manchuria, "The air is so hot I made pickled plums. Come home soon. We will plant persimmon trees." She posted it that evening. The next morning at 8:15 a.m., the world turned white. The letter was never delivered. It was found decades later in a postal archive, marked undeliverable, city destroyed. But someone kept it. Someone knew it mattered. Today, these letters are more than historical artifacts. They are moral reckonings. They force us to see war not as strategy or glory, but as the violent unravelling of ordinary lives. The soldier fights with a weapon. The civilian fights with a letter, and often that is their only shield against oblivion. In the National Archives of Belgium, there is a file labelled Letters from the Doomed Villages. It contains 37 letters from civilians in towns erased during the Battle of the Somme, places like Serres, Beaumont-Hamel and Thierval, now marked only by cemeteries. One, from a baker named Henri Dupont, reads, "The bread is rising. Come eat before it cools." His bakery was obliterated on July 1st, 1916. No one came, but the letter did. Similarly, in the Warsaw Ghetto archive, hidden in milk cans and buried beneath rubble by historian Emanuel Ringelblum, a child's note was found. I am hungry, but Mama says stars are free. So I look up. That child has no name in history. But because of that note, they are not nothing. The preservation of these letters is itself an act of resistance. In 2018, a French historian discovered a bundle of WWI letters in a flea market in Lyon, sold as old paper for scrap. She bought them for €20. Among them was a letter from a 16-year-old girl to her brother at the front. I water your plants. They miss you. I miss you more. The historian tracked down the brother's descendants. The letter was returned to the family 104 years later. The granddaughter wept as she read it. We didn't know her name, she said. Now we do. This is why we must remember them, not as symbols, but as people. The world wars did not destroy only cities. They destroyed continuity. Grandmothers who could not pass down recipes. Fathers who could not teach sons to fish. Sisters who could not braid hair. Each letter is a thread pulled from the tapestry of human connection, and each recovered letter is a stitch put back in place. In your own home, perhaps, there is a letter, maybe in a drawer, a box, an old book, faded ink, shaky handwriting, a postmark from a town you've never visited. That letter is a miracle. It survived war, flood, fire, time. It is a voice from the edge of the storm, saying, I was here, I loved, I hoped. The civilians who wrote these letters did not know they were writing for history. They wrote for love, for connection, for the simple human need to say, I exist. And in that act, they defied the very machinery of war that sought to reduce them to numbers, to rubble, to silence. So what happened to them? Most are gone, nameless in mass graves, lost to fire, erased by bureaucracy. But their letters live, and as long as we read them, they are not gone. They are here in the rustle of turning pages, in the hush of a museum gallery, in the quiet moment when a descendant reads, I saved you, Jam, and taste the cherries of a summer that never ended for her. Their homes were destroyed, their streets were renamed, their countries redrew borders over their bones, but their words remain fragile, stubborn, and true. They wrote before the world wars destroyed their homes, and in doing so they built something that could not be bombed, memory. And so we remember. For Elise, for Milena, for Jan, for David, for Margaret, for Keiko, for the millions whose names we'll never know, but whose last lines echo in the silence between the thunder of cannons. Their letters were not mailed to us, but they were always meant for us to read, to bear witness, to ensure that in the next war we do not forget. The first casualty is not truth, but the ordinary, beautiful, unremarkable life that truth is meant to protect.